I've always been fascinated by the unknown, the vast emptiness of space that stretches beyond our comprehension. That's why I joined NASA, why I trained relentlessly to become an astronaut, and why I volunteered for this mission. But now, as I float in the oppressive silence of our failing space station, I realize that some things are better left unknown. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, astrophysicist and lead researcher on Project Singularity. Our mission seemed straightforward: create and study an artificial micro-black hole in the controlled environment of the International Space Station Alpha, a new, larger iteration of the ISS, positioned in high Earth orbit. The potential benefits were enormous: unlimited clean energy, revolutionary propulsion systems, maybe even the key to faster-than-light travel. We were 6 months into our year-long mission. Everything had been going according to plan. Our team of 12, a mix of scientists, engineers, and support staff from various space agencies, had successfully generated the micro-black hole 3 months ago. It was barely the size of an atom, held in place by an intricate array of electromagnetic fields, its behavior perfectly in line with our theoretical models. Until yesterday. I remember the moment clearly. I was in the observation module, my favorite spot on the station. The vast window offered an unparalleled view of Earth below and the star-studded blackness beyond. I was updating my research log when the alarms started blaring. Warning: gravitational anomaly detected, containment field instability. All personnel report to emergency stations. The automated voice was calm, almost soothing, a stark contrast to the panic that immediately gripped me. I pushed off from the window, propelling myself towards the main research hub, where we housed the black hole chamber. As I entered, I saw my colleagues already gathered around the main console. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our lead engineer, was furiously typing commands, her usually composed face etched with worry. "Sarah, thank God you're here," she called out as I approached. "The black hole, it's growing. The containment field is barely holding." I felt my stomach drop. This shouldn't be possible. Our calculations, our safeguards, everything should have prevented this. "How?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Dr. James Rodriguez, our theoretical physicist, shook his head in disbelief. "We don't know. It's as if the laws of physics we've based our work on suddenly changed." I pushed my way to the console, my eyes scanning the readouts. The numbers didn't make sense. The black hole was indeed growing, but not in any way we had anticipated. It was almost as if it was alive. "We need to shut it down," I said, the words catching in my throat. This was my project, my life's work, but the safety of the crew came first. Yuki nodded grimly. "I've already initiated the shutdown sequence, but it's not responding. The black hole is somehow interfering with our systems." A chill ran down my spine. I looked up at the reinforced chamber that housed our creation. Through the thick observation window, I could see the swirling vortex of darkness, larger than it should be, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. And for a moment, just a fleeting second, I could have sworn I saw something move within that impossible darkness. Something that looked back at me with a hunger that defied comprehension. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of our nightmare. The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. We ran every diagnostic, tried every shutdown procedure we had developed, and even attempted to boost the containment field. Nothing worked. The black hole continued to grow, slowly but steadily, defying every law of physics we thought we understood. As the initial panic subsided, a heavy silence fell over the station. We gathered in the common area, our faces pale and drawn. Commander Elena Volkov, a veteran cosmonaut with nerves of steel, addressed us all. "I've informed Mission Control of our situation," she said, her Russian accent thicker than usual, betraying her stress. "They're assembling a team of experts to assist us. In the meantime, we continue our efforts to contain and understand this anomaly." We nodded, clinging to this sliver of hope. But as I looked around at my colleagues, I could see the fear in their eyes. We were alone up here, facing something beyond our understanding. That night, or what passed for night in the constant orbit of our station, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in my sleeping bag, my mind racing with calculations and theories. When I finally drifted off, my dreams were filled with swirling darkness and whispered voices I couldn't quite understand. I woke with a start, my heart pounding. For a moment, I could have sworn I heard someone calling my name, but that was impossible. My sleeping quarters were private, and the thick walls of the station didn't allow for sound to travel easily. Shaking off the unsettling feeling, I made my way to the research hub. The station felt different somehow. The familiar hum of machinery seemed muted, and the usually bright corridors felt dimmer, shadows lingering in corners where there shouldn't be any. As I approached the black hole chamber, I noticed Dr. Rodriguez already there, staring intently at the observation window. "James?" I called out, but he didn't respond. I floated closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. He jumped, spinning around with wide, frightened eyes. "Sarah, I didn't hear you come in. Are you okay?" I asked, concern creeping into my voice. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the months. I'm not sure. I've been having these strange dreams, and when I'm awake, I keep thinking I see things out of the corner of my eye, shadows moving where they shouldn't be. I felt a chill run down my spine. "I've been experiencing something similar," I admitted. We both turned to look at the black hole. It had grown noticeably since yesterday, now about the size of a baseball. The swirling darkness seemed to pulse with an otherworldly rhythm. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" James whispered, his voice tinged with a mix of awe and fear. "Terrifying but beautiful." I nodded, unable to take my eyes off it. There was something mesmerizing about the void, something that called to a primal part of my brain. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog that seemed to be settling over my thoughts. "We should run another set of tests," I said, more to break the spell than anything else. James nodded, and we set to work. But as we analyzed the data, things only became more confusing. The black hole's growth didn't follow any pattern we could discern. It was as if it was adapting, learning, evolving in ways we couldn't predict. As the day wore on, more of the crew reported strange experiences. Dr. Tanaka swore she heard laughter coming from empty rooms. Our medical officer, Dr. Kwesi Okoro, reported an uptick in crew members complaining of vivid, disturbing nightmares. And then there were the glitches, small at first, a flickering light here, a momentary loss of artificial gravity there, but they were increasing in frequency and severity. During a crew meeting, our communications specialist, Lisa Chen, no relation to me, brought up a disturbing point. "I've been trying to send our latest data packets to Mission Control, but there's something wrong with the transmissions. They're not going through clearly. It's as if something is interfering with our communications." Commander Volkov frowned. "Oh, could it be solar activity? Or maybe damage to our arrays?" Lisa shook her head. "I've checked everything. Technically, there's nothing wrong with our systems, but the data, it's like it's being scrambled somehow." We all exchanged worried glances. The implication was clear. We were becoming increasingly isolated, cut off from Earth, and any hope of external help. As the meeting adjourned, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something crucial. The black hole was at the center of all this, I was sure of it. But how, and more importantly, why? I made my way back to my quarters, my mind whirling with questions. As I passed the observation module, something caught my eye. I stopped, pressing my face against the thick glass. Out in the vast emptiness of space, just for a moment, I thought I saw something move, a shadow darker than the void itself, massive and shapeless, rippling across the star-filled backdrop. I blinked, and it was gone. But the image burned itself into my mind, along with a terrifying thought. What if we're not alone out here? Days blurred together as we fought a losing battle against the growing anomaly. Sleep became a luxury none of us could afford, our waking hours consumed by desperate attempts to understand and contain the black hole. But with each passing hour, the situation grew more dire. The black hole had grown to the size of a car, its gravitational pull now strong enough that we had to constantly adjust the station's orbit to compensate. Equipment started to malfunction with increasing frequency, and the shadows in the corners seemed to grow deeper, more menacing. It was during one of our endless strategy sessions that we received the first clear sign that something was terribly, impossibly wrong. We were gathered in the command module, exhausted faces illuminated by the glow of monitors displaying a dizzying array of data. Commander Volkov was in the middle of outlining our latest containment plan when suddenly every screen in the room flickered and went dark. For a moment, we sat in stunned silence. Then, one by one, the screens came back to life, but instead of the familiar NASA programming, they displayed a chaotic swirl of symbols and shapes that hurt the eyes to look at directly. And then, we heard it. A voice, if you could call it that. It was like 1,000 whispers overlaid on each other, speaking in a language that was definitely not human. It emanated from every speaker in the station, filling our ears with its otherworldly sound. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to react. He let out a strangled cry and began clawing at his ears. "Make it stop!" he screamed. "Oh God, make it stop!" I reached out to him, but before I could touch him, he pushed off from his seat and fled the room, his agonized cries echoing down the corridor. The rest of us sat frozen, our minds struggling to process what was happening. The voice continued for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes before fading away, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Commander Volkov was the first to speak, her voice shaky but determined. "We need to find James. And then we need to figure out what the hell just happened." We split up to search for Dr. Rodriguez. I headed towards the research hub, a gnawing fear growing in my stomach. As I approached the black hole chamber, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. James's voice, but distorted, speaking in that same incomprehensible language we had heard earlier. I peered through the observation window and felt my heart stop. James was inside the chamber, floating mere feet away from the swirling vortex of the black hole. His eyes were wide open but completely black, and his mouth moved in sync with the alien words pouring from his lips. "James!" I screamed, pounding on the thick glass. "James, can you hear me?" He turned slowly to face me, and I stumbled back in horror. His face was changing, shifting in ways that defied explanation. For a moment, I saw something else looking out through his eyes, something ancient and vast and utterly alien. I slammed my hand on the emergency lockdown button, sealing the chamber. Alarms blared throughout the station as the rest of the crew converged on my location. "What happened?" Commander Volkov demanded as she arrived, her face pale with shock as she saw James through the window. I couldn't find the words to explain. How could I describe the impossible thing I had just witnessed? As we watched in helpless horror, James's body began to distort, stretching and twisting in ways that should have been fatal. And then, in a final, sickening moment, he was pulled into the black hole, vanishing from sight. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Tanaka was the first to break it, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not just a black hole, is it? It's something else, something alive." I nodded slowly, the terrifying truth settling over us like a shroud. I think we've opened a door, and now something is coming through." As if in response to my words, the lights throughout the station flickered, and for a moment, I could have sworn I saw massive, shadowy tentacles writhing along the walls. We huddled together, our earlier scientific curiosity replaced by primal fear. Whatever was on the other side of that portal we had unwittingly created, it was beyond our comprehension. And it was hungry. Commander Volkov's voice cut through our terrified silence. "We need to destroy it. The black hole, the station, everything. It's the only way to stop this from spreading to Earth." The gravity of her words hit us all. Destroying the station would mean our own deaths, but if we didn't, the consequences for humanity could be unimaginable. As we began to plan our final, desperate act, I couldn't shake the feeling that it might already be too late. The entity on the other side of the void was aware of us now, and I feared it had no intention of letting us go. The decision to destroy the station weighed heavily on all of us. It wasn't just about sacrificing our lives, it was about erasing years of work, the culmination of human scientific achievement, and the death of our dreams of unlocking the universe's secrets. But we knew it had to be done. Commander Volkov set the plan in motion. We would overload the station's reactor, causing a catastrophic explosion that would hopefully be powerful enough to collapse the artificial black hole. It was a long shot, based more on desperate hope than sound scientific theory, but it was all we had. As we worked feverishly to prepare for our final act, the entity's presence grew stronger. The shadows in the corners of our vision became more pronounced, occasionally taking on shapes that defied description. The whispers in unknown languages became a constant background noise, like static on an old radio, but it was the dreams that were the worst. When exhaustion finally forced us to rest, our sleep was filled with visions of vast, impossible geometries and alien landscapes that hurt the mind to comprehend. We saw glimpses of a universe beyond our own, teeming with life and intelligence so far beyond us that we were less than insects in comparison. And always, we felt watched, studied, judged. I woke from one such dream, my heart pounding and sweat beading on my forehead, to find Dr. Tanaka shaking me urgently. "Sarah, wake up. Something's happening in the black hole chamber." I stumbled out of my sleeping bag, following Yuki through the twisting corridors of the station. As we approached the research hub, I could hear a low, pulsing hum that seemed to resonate in my bones. The sight that greeted us as we entered the hub was both beautiful and terrifying. The black hole had grown again, now nearly filling the entire chamber. But it wasn't just a void anymore. Swirling within its depths were colors I had no names for, patterns that seemed to shift and change even as I looked at them. And there, at the very center of the maelstrom, was a shape. Something was trying to push through. "My God," Yuki whispered beside me. "It's coming through." As if triggered by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The voice of our AI assistant, usually so calm and collected, now held a note of panic. Warning: massive gravitational disturbance detected. Hull integrity compromised. Emergency protocols initiated. The station shuddered around us, metal groaning under impossible stresses. I grabbed onto a nearby console to steady myself, my eyes never leaving the mesmerizing. They were nothing like human eyes, or any eyes I had ever seen. Each one was a swirling vortex of colors and patterns, and as they opened, I felt a pressure in my mind, as if something vast and alien was trying to force its way into my consciousness. Beside me, Yuki let out a strangled cry and collapsed to her knees, clutching her head. I wanted to help her, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even blink. The entity had me transfixed, and I felt my mind stretching, expanding, trying to encompass concepts and knowledge that no human brain was meant to contain. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just some alien creature. This was something far older, far more fundamental to the universe. We hadn't created a black hole. We had punctured the membrane between realities, and now something from the spaces between universes was pushing through. Just as I thought my mind would shatter under the weight of this revelation, a new alarm cut through the chaos. Commander Volkov's voice, strained but determined, came over the station's comm system. "Attention all crew. The reactor overload is in progress. We have 10 minutes until detonation. Make your peace and report to your emergency stations." The sound of her voice broke whatever hold the entity had on me. I gasped, feeling as if I had been underwater for hours, and turned to Yuki. She was still on the ground, her eyes wide and unfocused. "Yuki, we have to go," I shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her to her feet. She moved like a sleepwalker, but at least she was moving. As we stumbled out of the research hub, I risked one last glance back at the chamber. The entity was still emerging, its impossible form now halfway into our reality. But something had changed. Many of its eyes were now focused directly on me, and I felt a sense of curiosity, interest. Whatever it was, I knew with chilling certainty that it wasn't done with me. We made our way through the station, which now felt more like the inside of a living organism than a structure of metal and plastic. The walls pulsed with alien energies, and more than once I saw ghostly tentacles phase through solid matter. When we reached the designated emergency area, we found the rest of the surviving crew already there. Commander Volkov was at the center, her face grim but composed. "Status report," she barked as soon as she saw us. I opened my mouth to speak, but found I didn't have the words to describe what I had seen. How could I explain the vast cosmic horror that was even now pushing its way into our reality? Dr. Okoro, our medical officer, stepped forward. "Commander, we're losing the station. Whatever that thing is, it's not just in the chamber anymore. It's spreading." As if to emphasize his point, a tendril of shadow snaked across the floor, passing through solid metal as if it wasn't there. We all instinctively stepped back. Commander Volkov nodded grimly. "Then we stick to the plan. The reactor overload should be enough to destroy the station and hopefully close whatever portal we've opened." "And if it doesn't?" Lisa Chen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The silence that followed was answer enough. If our plan failed, there would be nothing standing between that cosmic horror and Earth. As the final minutes ticked away, I found myself drawn to the small observation window. Earth hung there, a beautiful blue marble against the backdrop of space. I thought of all the people down there, going about their lives, completely unaware of the cosmic doom that was unfolding above them. A hand on my shoulder startled me. It was Commander Volkov. "It's not your fault, Sarah," she said softly. "None of us could have predicted this." I nodded, unable to speak around the lump in my throat. We stood there in silence, watching our home planet as the countdown to our final act reached its end. The explosion, when it came, was almost anticlimactic. There was a deep, subsonic rumble that shook the station to its core, and then nothing. For a moment, I dared to hope that it had worked, that we had somehow managed to close the portal and destroy the entity. But then I felt it, a vast, alien presence, pressing against the edges of my mind. I turned slowly, already knowing what I would see. The entity was there, filling the room, its countless eyes focused on us. It had fully emerged into our reality now, and I realized with a sinking feeling that our desperate plan had failed. The laws of physics that we had based our last hope on simply didn't apply to this being. As tentacles of shadow began to enfold us, I heard its voice in my mind. It wasn't in any language I knew, but somehow I understood. "You have opened the way. We have waited so long. Now, we come." The last thing I saw before the darkness took me was Earth, still hanging serenely in the void, unaware of the cosmic horror that was now turned its hungry gaze upon it. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I came to, my first sensation was one of weightlessness, but not the familiar microgravity of the space station. This was different. I felt untethered, as if I was floating in an infinite void. Slowly, I opened my eyes, and immediately wished I hadn't. I was surrounded by a darkness so complete it seemed to swallow all light. But within that darkness, I could see things, shapes and colors that shouldn't exist, twisting and writhing in ways that made my mind reel. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding muffled and distant in the strange environment. "Is anyone there?" As if in response, I felt a presence brush against my mind. It wasn't the overwhelming force of the entity we had encountered on the station. This felt smaller, more focused, and terrifyingly familiar. "Sarah?" The voice echoed in my head, and with a jolt, I recognized it. Dr. James Rodriguez. "James, is that you? Where are we?" I tried to move towards the source of the voice, but in this strange non-space, I had no reference points. I'm not sure I'm James anymore," the voice replied, tinged with a mixture of wonder and fear. Oh God, Sarah, I've seen so much. The entity, it's showing me things, teaching me." A chill ran down my spine. "James, listen to me. Whatever it's showing you, whatever it's telling you, you can't trust it. We need to find a way out of here to warn Earth." There was a long pause, and when James spoke again, his voice had changed. It was colder, more distant. "Warn them. No, Sarah. You don't understand. This is evolution. The next step. Humanity needs this." Before I could respond, I felt another presence. This one was vast, ancient, the same entity we had encountered on the station. Its countless eyes focused on me. To push back against the alien presence in my mind, but it was like trying to hold back an ocean with my bare hands. Memories flashed before my eyes, my childhood, my years of study, the excitement of being chosen for this mission, but they were being overwritten, replaced by alien knowledge and cosmic secrets that no human mind was meant to contain. Through the haze of alien thoughts, I caught glimpses of the others. Commander Volkov. Her iron will finally crumbling under the entity's assault. Dr. Tanaka. Her brilliant mind now turned to serving our cosmic invader. And James was almost gone, more a part of the entity now than human. As we fell through the atmosphere, I saw the Earth below us, growing larger by the second. But it wasn't the Earth I knew. The continents were wrong, the oceans too vast and dark. Was this the future, or some parallel Earth in another dimension? The entity's voice filled my mind again. We will remake this world, and you will help us. With the last shred of my humanity, I tried to scream a warning to the unsuspecting planet below, but no sound came out. My body, my voice, everything I was, now belonged to the cosmic horror that had consumed us. As we streaked through the sky like falling stars, I had one last coherent thought. This isn't the end. It's only the beginning of something far worse. Then the alien presence surged forward, and Sarah Chen ceased to exist. An indeterminate amount of time later, I found myself standing on the surface of what used to be Earth. The sky above was a swirling mass of colors that no human eye should be able to perceive. The ground beneath my feet pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and in the distance, I could see structures that defied Euclidean geometry. I say I, but that's not entirely accurate. The being that stood there wore the skin of Sarah Chen, but the mind within was a horrifying amalgamation of human and cosmic entity. I retained enough of my original consciousness to understand the magnitude of what had happened, but not enough to resist or feel proper horror at our new reality. Around me, I saw others, former humans like myself, now vessels for the entity's consciousness. I recognized James, or what used to be James. His form flickered between his human appearance and something else, something with too many limbs and eyes that saw beyond the visible spectrum. Isn't it beautiful, Sarah? James's voice echoed in my mind, filled with an eerie joy. We've transcended. We're part of something greater now. I wanted to disagree, to argue, to scream that this was wrong, but those impulses were muted, overridden by the vast alien intelligence that now occupied most of my being. In the sky, rifts had opened, tears in the fabric of reality itself. Through them, I could see other worlds, other dimensions, and from those rifts, more entities were emerging. Earth was just the beginning, a beachhead for a cosmic invasion beyond human comprehension. The knowledge of what was happening, what we had unleashed, should have filled me with despair, but the entity's influence dampened those emotions, replacing them with a cold, alien curiosity. I found myself analyzing the situation with detached interest, my human empathy and fear buried under layers of cosmic awareness. I watched as the remaining human population was slowly transformed. Some resisted, their minds unable to cope with the reality-warping presence of the entities. Others embraced it, willingly offering themselves up to be remade in the image of our cosmic overlords. Cities were reshaped into impossible geometries, serving as conduits for energies from beyond our universe. The laws of physics bent and warped, creating pockets of space where time moved differently, where gravity fluctuated wildly, where the very concept of existence was fluid. And through it all, I observed. The part of me that was still Sarah Chen catalogued the changes, noted the way human civilization crumbled and was reborn into something utterly alien. The larger part, the cosmic entity that now dominated my consciousness, saw it as merely the next step in universal evolution. As the transformation of Earth neared completion, I felt a shift in the cosmic awareness that permeated my being. Our focus was turning outward, towards the stars. Earth was just the beginning. There were countless other worlds to remake, entire galaxies to consume and transform. I found myself standing at the edge of one of the reality rifts, peering into the vast, incomprehensible void beyond. The entity's voice, now indistinguishable from my own thoughts, whispered, "The seed has grown. Now we spread." With that, what remained of Sarah Chen stepped through the rift, leaving behind the ruins of human civilization and the birthing ground of a new cosmic order. As my form dissipated into the swirling energies of the void, I had one last, fleeting human thought. I'm sorry. We never should have looked into the abyss. But it was too late. The abyss had looked back and it had found us wanting. In the depths of space, in the cracks between realities, a new era had begun. And humanity, in any recognizable form, was no longer a part of it.